Alive.
Great.
The SSD's
It says it's live.
Yeah, it is now.
We are live.
Okay, perfect. You want me to start with the first one, Kevin? You want to
Yep,
take
or Tom, if you want to explain or you want me to explain it, either one works. Yeah.
go right ahead?
Yep. So this first one came item 1.01 from conversation Tom and I had looking through all the policies. Tom identified that we've got a lot of different styles of policies just because we have policies updated over the years. Not all of them have conformed to kind of the same universal style guide. So we wanted to bring this forward to propose adjusting all of our existing policies and regulations to conform to the same style guide. So we have that attached there for you to review, just so that way every policy looks the same, that we don't have different font, that we don't have different headers, that the way we do page numbers, it's all the really exciting stuff in the policy, honestly. The way that you navigate it, the subheaders, the headers, and have that stuff be universal across the board. At the same time, with the new organizational chart for SSD, we thought if we're going through all the policies and fixing the formatting, then that would also be an opportunity to universally have the language match. So, for example, some policies say human resources, others say offices of employee success and engagement. So now that we've gone back to that being human resources, going ahead and fixing that. Or it says COO instead of CFO because we went back and forth between those titles. So nothing substantial changing to the policies at all, but doing a universal cleanup of style and making sure all the titles that are in the policies are the correct titles. Questions or concerns about that?
No, I think
Thank you.
no, I think that's
Thank you.
great. Yeah.
Then we can head on to BDDLR. And this one was just a very minor change about the link for Sunshine requests. And then a few grammatical changes. Question or
I'll make
concerns
the
with
global
BDDL?
annoying yeah. So I'll make the global annoying nitpicky comment here that the capital D's and B's were missed throughout. I've said it. Okay, I got it out of my system.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Asner. EBBC. So this is kind of the first in a group of policies that are all going to have changes as a part of the Pregnant Worker Fairness Act. So matching the language from those federal changes. So MSBA gave us a whole group of policy updates that are all around and related to that act. Questions or concerns with EBBC?
Not for me.
Yep. So FFA, the policy, not Future Farmers of America. This one, it's just rescinding the policy because all of its pertinent information is moving over to KH. This is a part of MSBA trying to rein in the number of policies that are out there or ones that are kind of duplicative, and it's hard to figure out which one to reference that what's in FFA can live in KH. Questions or concerns with KH, or sorry, with FFA? Okay. GB and GBR, which is all about part-time and substitute staff. Big change here was bringing over the language that's changed in the state statute that you can have individuals subbing that are 18 years or older, but limiting that to specific grade levels. Kelly Services, who we use for our substitutes, is already following the statute, but they just want to have that live in board policy. There were also some sections that have lived in the MSBA policy that haven't been a part of our policy, so we pulled those over about employing retirees and those types of things. This is another one where we had a regulation and a policy when really everything can all just live in the policy, and so that's what we're looking to do with GB.
I've got questions, but not necessarily about the policy, just about employing 18-year-olds in classes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a conversation for another day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is it something that should inform our district policy?
Well, just a wondering of like based on like data of like how it's going and how students are responding. Because I know like we deal with, you know, a unique population, and 18-year-olds, if they don't have experience with students with special needs, really can't wrap their mind around like, why is the student not talking to me, right? Like, and so just wondering like how that, and I know we have like some paraprofessional training and things like that, but when we're talking about substitutes, just wondering like how equipped and like how are we supporting them in their understanding of our student needs and just how it's going, right? Like it really can be a population for us to tap into, but just wondering.
Yeah, it's a really good question, Director Staten. And so we've worked with Kelly Services. They've actually made a separate onboarding just for SSD because as we made the pivot to Kelly, that was kind of the universal challenge that we saw was just because you're really good subbing in a high school social studies class doesn't necessarily mean you're prepared for what you're going to see in some of our special education settings. So Kelly Services has developed a customized onboarding for subs who will be subbing in SSD. And that goes for all subs, whether they're this group that's in the 18 to 20-year-old range or it's our traditional subs who are 21 plus. To acclimate them to SSD. They also have an annual training that they do with all of their subs as well as kind of a brief refresher on here are the things you need to remember when you're working in SSD. We have seen a lot of improvement with our subs since they've added in that onboarding piece. We had some subs who would come and then they would never sub with us again because like this is not what I thought I was getting into, and they weren't necessarily prepared for the setting they were walking into. With that added onboarding, we've had some people through the onboarding say, you know what, I don't think I'm right now in the place to sub for special school district, and that's okay. We would much rather have them make that decision in the onboarding process than when they're in a classroom with kids. And so that's helped pretty dramatically. We don't have very many subs that are working with us right now that are in that 18 to 20-year-old range. You see that more in some other parts of the state. But what we do see, a lot of the ones who are in that range, they're students who are working towards a degree in education, and that this is a piece that's just supporting them on that journey towards becoming a teacher.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. GBAA and GBAA R1 and R2. This is clarifying the language regarding 12-month administrators, as well as some minor grammatical edits. It was really just gray in GBAA and the regulations as to whether or not additional contracts could be, or extra duty assignments could be compensated for 12-month administrators. So this just cleans up that language. All the language that is in here is language proposed by our district attorneys at Bryan Cave.
Just a couple of quick comments. First of all, I think one of the regulations had Dr. Macklin's name replacing Dr. Keenan's name, and other regulations we often have just superintendent of schools. I was going to suggest we just, you know, maybe keep it as superintendent of schools without a name. That is I'm expecting you to be with us for a long time, Dr. Macklin, but it'll make things nice and easy.
Oh, I thought you were giving me a hint there. Okay.
Nah,
All right.
I support that. And sir,
Okay.
we at least on this 5-year train. So
The
Great.
The other question I had is I think especially because extra duty pay has been something that's been brought up or the board has been paying attention to. If we could make sure the rest of the board, when we are approving this or reviewing it in open session, that it be pulled out from the consensuals.
Yep. Okay. So Tom, we can do what we did just kind of like with this last group where I submitted as an action item.
Noted.
Thank you.
So this is, so GBE is the next one, Staff Health and Safety. Again, this is another one that's the Pregnant Worker Fairness Act edits. And so that's where this is all coming over. These are all the recommendations from MSBA in response to that federal change. Questions about that one?
There's a typo in the new text in red. Beginning in the first paragraph, and the section says Americans with Disabilities Act ADA should be an R.
Oh,
After-
sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
There's another one in the where is it? Like this is it says, hold on, I gotta find the sentence. Sections 504 of the rehabilitation. I'm trying to see if this is the one you said, you all, but of the 1973 or the Americans Disability Act 88, and is this of no, like for no limitation?
Yeah, it should be 4. Yep, we'll get that fixed. Next one. All right, so GCBA. And again, this is professional staff compensation. And this is, again, more of that clarification around 12-month administrators. And this is the language from Brian Cave that we're carrying over. Just adding that little sentence. HA negotiations, this is the one that came up at the board meeting on Tuesday that Director Suda asked us to bring back. And so this one here, we've made additional edits to, so reflecting the feedback from Director Suda, stating that it's the board's preference that all agreements are ratified prior to the date in which contracts are issued to staff.
And
We
Kevin,
left
am I
this-
correct about this when we moved the regulation to the policy?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Dr. Macklin?
Emma, the reason why this lengthened is because we took the regulation and added it to the policy.
That's correct. If you remember, one board policy meeting ago when we talked about this, it was, we had all of this stuff living in the regulation, and it made sense for the language living in the regulation to really be in the policy. So we moved the language from the regulation over to the policy. And then this piece here, this is new language of it's the board's preference that agreements shall be ratified prior to the date in which contracts are issued to staff.
Yeah.
We left it as staff so it can cover all collective bargaining agreements and it's not limited to one audience. I think on Tuesday we talked about teachers, but we wanted to make sure that that was encompassing all staff covered by a joint resolution.
Good.
So the life cycle for this one, since we've made some additional edits, is it's still going to go through that first reading, second reading before we ratify.
Okay. Can we go back to that one more time, Kevin? Just one more time. The piece that speaks to here, employees will not be given unpaid leave, will be given paid, or employees will not be given paid or unpaid leave from their district's duties to participate in negotiations unless authorized by the district. The district's preference that negotiations be taken outside the school day. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to read that again one more time.
Yep. And again, we left it as district preference.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying that it's a mandate or anything along those lines.
Yeah.
And then Wendy, you work with IGBE.
Yes, sir, I did. I have IGBE, students in foster care, along with the regulations 1, 2, and 3. For the most part, it was minor updates and corrections. I did add, after working with Kevin, MSBA, the language in regulation 1 that clarified the best interest determination for students in foster care that is found in Regulation 1. For Regulation 2 and 3 is truly just minor grammatical errors and updates. And also making sure in this that since we provide special education support, that truly the students are enrolled in their partner districts, and it would be the partner districts or resident area school district that would be making that foster care decision and be providing that best interest determination along with foster care.
Yeah, this is an important one to note that this is one of those policies where we're not really able to take the MSBA policy directly on face value, that we really have to customize it to fit the dual system.
Yes, sir.
Three didn't change, right? You just added it for reference.
Correct, sir. I wanted to keep all of the regulations together.
And you'll see that throughout, Tom, because we want the dates to all match. We don't want a regulation to be older than the policy, because then there's debate over, well, does this regulation really apply to the policy then if the policy's been updated but the reg has not?
Thank you.
ILA, this is just really pulling over changes that happened with the guide to Missouri assessment program. So some of the changes with MAP. So it was really just pulling all over that language and just having it match. Questions on ILA? Okay. Student discipline. So this one again, pulling over some changes to align with MSIP. Also better clarifying really the nexus of the school environment, because we do, while speech is protected off campus, when it spills over into those things like bullying or those types of things, that our code of conduct can apply to that, especially if it's disruptive to the learning environment. So better clarifying that. So those are really the changes to JG.
Do you have, I guess I can look this up, but do you have the example of the type of discipline that was addressed in that court decision that's referenced in the reason for changing the student discipline document here?
You give me just
Like, do you know in other words what kind of behavior that occurred outside of a school was deemed, I'm assuming, to be not disciplinable by the school?
I do not have that readily available, but I can provide that to you, Dr. Asner.
I can look it up. It's I was just curious if if I was trying to think of what examples that the policy was referring to that would apply to.
Right. Anything else on JG? All right, then KH, which is public gifts to schools, which this incorporated all that language from FFA that we looked at earlier.
I had a question. I was just trying to look at the section purchase of, now I guess it says library materials, school supplies and equipment. There was a lot that was chopped up, so I wanted to make sure I was reading correctly. The first section just says selections must be aligned. All that text is eliminated. It's essentially replaced by selections must be aligned with the district's needs and curriculum. And then plants and trees, and it gives examples and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, the goal was just to tighten everything up, because we were listing everything in the kitchen sink, and you really, it's MSBA trying to clean up language. that, and I hope that nobody donates any CD-ROMs to us, because I don't know if we have any devices left in the district that can use a CD-ROM.
We'll have to list them in the consensuals for things we're getting rid of, putting up to auction.
Yeah. All right, and that is all we had on the agenda for this meeting.
Thank you all. Happy birthday, Wendy.
Thank you very much. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Great.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Wendy, I'm gonna call Wendy.